Allow myself to introduce myself.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you another classic film review. Today I'm taking a look at the 1997 classic comedy, Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. The film is written and starring Mark Myers. It is directed by Jay Roach and it stars Elizabeth Hurley, Michael York, Mimi Rogers, Robert Wagner, Seth Green and Will Ferrell. Right. Austin Powers is England's greatest spy, and in the 60s he has no evil. He is desired by women and feared by men. He is on the trail of Dr. Evil, and unfortunately Dr. Evil escapes and cryo-freezes himself to wake up many years later in order to complete his world domination. Not to be outdone, Austin Powers himself gets himself cryo-freezed, wakes up in modern times, is a fish out of water. He realises the 60s idealisms are no longer tolerated in the 90s, but he's still got to chase down Dr. Evil, and he does that with the help of Elizabeth Hurley's Vanessa. Right, what are my thoughts on Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery? Well, I think most people would probably agree that the Austin Powers films are Mike Myers' magnum opus, I suppose. I mean, yes, of course, the Shrek films are fabulous, and he is fabulous in them, Mike Myers, with the voice of Shrek and stuff. But in regards to live-action films, I think these Austin Powers films are really fantastic. Very, very entertaining. I've always been a big fan of as well. So I Married an Axe Murderer. That's a personal favourite of mine of Mike Myers. But I do really enjoy these Austin Powers films. Now, it's odd, you know, because when this first came out in the 90s, I wasn't that keen. I wasn't a fan of parody films in general in the 90s. You know, even the Naked Gun films and things like that, and even the Airplane films and you know, these films that parodied other stuff. And I think the reason I was never keen is because I liked the stuff that they were parodying for the most part. So I was a big fan of Bond and spy films and action films in general, and I thought this film when I was younger was taking the piss. Well, of course it was taking the piss. That's but I didn't really, if you like, it didn't click with me that they were doing it in a really respectful and honourable way. It's the ultimate compliment, really, when films do it, and do it as well as this film does, because it is so self-aware and so brilliant as a parody of spy films in general, but mainly the James Bond franchise. I mean, it could easily have ruined Bond. And I do believe there is, you know, I think, is it Daniel Craig that went on record as if to say, you know, it potentially damaged the Bond franchise, which is why they went in a different direction. I don't necessarily agree with that, because when this came out, you know, Pierce Brosnan was Bond, and he was still massively popular as Bond, and the Bond films were still doing well. And they went in I personally believe they went in a darker direction in the noughties with Casino Royale, mainly down to the Bourne films, and maybe a little bit of this. They wanted to get rid of some of the silliness, but I don't think it harmed the Bond franchise at all. I think it actually helped it, you know. How could it not? Because it was just so brilliantly done. Very, very funny. Mike Myers, when he nails a character, he really nails a character. He absolutely gets it, and he knocks it out of the park, and he totally nails this character, this buffoon of a character, who, when you watch the film and you're kind of like, how does this guy even function? Is that stupid? You know, and that obviously that's you know, that's part of the gag. But he just does it so well, this buffoon. But he is so likable. He's so lovable. He's so relatable as well in a lot of ways that you can't help but have a deep affection for the Austin Powers character. And it's one of those comedies that you have to kind of watch with your inhibitions turned off, with your sense of humour turned up, and you will absolutely enjoy this. Because if you go into this, I don't know, with the wrong mentality, you're going to hate it because it is just such a piss take throughout, and it's so bizarre in many, many ways. The random dance sequences, and the sexual innuendos, and the character names like a lot of vagina. I mean, as daft as it is saying that out loud, it's no worse than some of the Bond names in actual Bond films if you actually analyse them. Will Ferrell's in this thing as well, as I mentioned. I don't think it's his first film role, but I think it's his first film role that, was worth anything, I suppose. I think he did 2 or 3 things before this, but this is like, his first real film role, if you like, where he kind of is in something he's going to get recognised. So it introduced us to Will Ferrell here. So many memorable characters. Robert Wagner as number 2 with the eye patch. He's very, very good. I absolutely loved as well Mindy Sterling as Frau. I can't even remember what her last bit name is. What screams all the time. Obviously a parody to her from With or Should With Love. The whole father and son dynamic with Dr. Evil is just so brilliantly done. Seth Green and Mike Myers, brilliant chemistry. They did a lot of ad-libbing apparently in the film between them, and it works brilliantly. Apparently as well, Mike Myers wanted Jim Carrey initially to play Dr. Evil, but Jim Carrey couldn't do it because of his scheduling conflicts. I mean, in the 90s, there's very few actors that were in more demand than Jim Carrey, so it doesn't surprise me. So he took on, obviously, the role himself and did dual roles, Mike Myers, which you can't imagine anybody else doing Dr. Evil now. And Dr. Evil comes very, very close to stealing the film. In fact, stealing all the films that he's in the Austin Powers films. He is remarkably good. So brilliantly done by Myers. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Sharks with frickin' lasers on them and stuff. The stuff he comes out with, and the therapy session and stuff that he does. But is it Carrie Fisher that's a therapist? I mean, it's just absolutely magical stuff. It's absolute comedy gold what he kind of gives us in this film. So it's so good, so fantastic, so many memorable characters, so many things you watch in this film and you can connect it to a Bond film that you watch and remember. Especially after I've just literally watched all the Sean Connerys and all the Roger Moores Bond films. This steals so much from them, especially the earlier ones, the Sean Connery ones. Interestingly as well, and I didn't know this, the guy that played Random Task, whose name escapes me, the guy that's parodying Oddjob from Goldfinger, he is actually in jail now. He was wanted by the police for torturing somebody, I think in 1990. And he went kind of uncaught for many, many years. And it was actually the woman who watched a copy of this film that recognised him, reported him to the police, and he ended up, due to DNA evidence, getting convicted. And then, in prison, he actually murdered his cellmate. So he's in prison now for torture and murder. That's the guy that played Random Task. How bizarre is that? So, yeah. What else can you say about Austin Powers International Man of Mystery? It is a comedy great. It's a comedy classic. I'm going to watch the other 2 as well. Let me know, guys, which is your favourite Austin Powers film. I think this one is, so brilliantly done. Very good, very funny. I mean, honestly, I had such a great time revisiting this because it is a few years since I've seen the Austin Powers trilogy. So, yeah. Let me know what your thoughts are on this film, guys, and I will, of course, be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.